Good, happy Friday morning, everyone, and happy TGIF. I'm Riley King, and today is May 1st, 2020, and welcome to Good Morning, New Hampshire. Rise and shine, everyone. Let's get this Friday off to a good start. It is time to sit back, relax, grab a cup of coffee, and watch some Good Morning, New Hampshire, where we have a little bit of everything for everyone in this program. First step, we're going to begin with the news. We're going to start with your local news first. First step, 6 more deaths in New Hampshire related to COVID-19 confirmed. Health officials identified another 96 coronavirus cases. 6 more people have died of COVID-19 in New Hampshire, and 96 more cases have been confirmed, health officials said yesterday on Thursday. Officials said 2 of the victims were women from Hillsborough County. 2 were men who lived in Rockingham County, and 1 was a woman who lived in Rockingham County. And 1 was a woman who lived in Stratford County. All were 60 years old or older. 72 New Hampshire residents have now died of the coronavirus. 1 of the new cases was a person who was under the age of 18, health officials said, and the rest were adults. There have been 2,146 confirmed cases of COVID-19 in New Hampshire. 3 new hospitalized cases have been identified for a total of 262 hospitalizations since the beginning of the pandemic. There are 1,094 current COVID-19 cases, and at least 980 people have recovered, health officials said. There are 112 people currently hospitalized in the state for COVID-19. And now let's take a look at your COVID-19 in New Hampshire information, what you need to know. And here is a look at that COVID-19 information, what you need to know. There are 2,146 number of people in New Hampshire have tested positive for COVID-19. 1,067,289 number of people in the United States who have tested positive. 72 number of deaths from COVID-19 in New Hampshire. 262 number of people who have been hospitalized with COVID-19 in New Hampshire. And 62,870 number of people in the United States who have died from COVID-19. And this map of New Hampshire shows you where cases of COVID-19 are in towns and cities of New Hampshire. In Nashua, 193 cases of COVID-19. This chart here, new cases each day in New Hampshire in the purple, daily new positive COVID-19 cases in the orange, new hospitalizations, and in the red are the deaths. This chart here, current cases in the purple, total current COVID-19 cases, and in the orange, current hospitalizations. In this chart here, current cumulative totals. Total positive COVID-19 cases in the orange, total hospitalizations, and in the red are the deaths, and in the blue, recovered. This chart here shows you by age group. This chart here shows you by female and male. And this chart here shows you risk information. This chart here shows you race/ ethnicity of cases. And this chart here shows the percent of New Hampshire population. And again, your common symptoms: fever, lack of smell, cough, chills, and difficult breathing. How it spreads, and prevention tips. And we're going to switch gears now. Let's go into national news. In national news, woman accuses Joe Biden of sexual assault. Let's take a listen to that video from ABC News.
The race for 2020 tonight and the accusation against Joe Biden. A woman coming forward claiming he sexually assaulted her while she was working as an aide in his Senate office in 1993. Biden has not directly addressed the allegation yet. His campaign denies the claim. But tonight, Democratic leaders are now being pressed, including Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Today asked, where does she stand on this? Here's Mary Bruce.
Tara Reid was a 29-year-old staff assistant in Joe Biden's Senate office in 1993 when she says aides told her to bring him his gym bag. She says she found him in a corridor of a Senate office building and has described what she says happened next in interviews with ABC News and other outlets, including Democracy Now!
I was up against the wall, and I remember his hands underneath my blouse and underneath my skirt, and his fingers penetrating me as he was trying to kiss me, and I was pulling away.
Reid tells us that at the time she complained to the Senate Personnel Office that Biden had, quote, made her feel uncomfortable. But she says she did not mention an assault, and she has no record of the complaint. She says she shared similar concerns with 3 other staffers in Biden's office. All 3 of those staffers tell ABC News that's not true. Reid claims she was forced out of her job.
And in fact, I was put in a windowless office, and I had my duties taken away from me.
In a statement, Biden's campaign says the former vice president firmly believes that women have a right to be heard and heard respectfully. What is clear about this claim? It is untrue. This absolutely did not happen. This is not the first time Reid has gone public with accusations against Biden, and her claims have evolved. Last year, the candidate came under fire from women who accused him of physical contact they felt was inappropriate, like unwanted hugs. At that time, Reid came forward to say Biden touched her on the shoulder and neck in a way that was, quote, uncomfortable. But she did not mention any kind of an assault, nothing like the incident she describes today. Reid says after the alleged assault in 1993, she told a few people. She referred us to a friend who says Reid told her Biden put his hand up her skirt during an unwanted encounter. The friend didn't want to be named. Reid also put us in touch with a former neighbor, Linda Lacasse, who says Reid told her about the alleged assault several years later. ABC News also spoke with Reid's brother, Colin Moulton. He told us his sister mentioned in 1993 that she was experiencing, quote, harassment at work. He said he did not know the details until recently, but later he texted us to, quote, clarify, saying he does remember his sister telling him that Biden, quote, more or less cornered her against the wall and put his hands up her clothes. Biden has yet to comment on the allegations himself. Today, pressure growing on top Democrats to answer for him.
I respect your question, and I don't need a lecture or a speech. Here's the thing. I have complete respect for the whole Me Too movement. I have 4 daughters and 1 son.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says she's satisfied with the Biden campaign's response.
So I want to remove all doubt in anyone's mind. I have great comfort level with the situation as I see it, with all the respect in the world for any woman who comes forward, with all the highest regard for Joe Biden.
Reid describes herself as a, quote, hardcore Democrat, but her story has now been taken up and heavily promoted by President Trump's campaign, his son Donald Trump Jr., and his political allies. Over a dozen women have accused the president of sexual misconduct and assault, including rape. The president says they're all lying. Now, the Trump campaign has been pushing this story, but the president just said that he doesn't know anything about these allegations. But he said that Biden should respond. And David, word tonight that the former vice president plans to do just that tomorrow morning. David.
All right, Mary Bruce, we'll stay tuned for that. Thank you.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. And let's take a look at your coronavirus live updates for the rest of the world. City votes to legally challenge Newcom's California beach closures. More than 63,000 people have died of COVID-19 in the U.S. Today's biggest developments. City to legally challenge California beach closure order. And U.S. coronavirus deaths surpass 63,000. And we're going to switch gears now. Let's go into business news. In business news, Dow futures fall more than 400 points after Wall Street wraps up best month in 3 decades. Stock futures fell sharply early Friday as investors poured through the latest batch of big tech earnings after Wall Street wrapped up its best month in decades. And we're going to switch gears now. Let's go into weather. Your weather right now is rain, 49 degrees. And your weather for today, rain early, then remaining cloudy with showers in the afternoon. Thunder possible, high 57 degrees, winds east at 5 to 10 miles per hour, chance of rain 100%. And we're going to switch gears now. Let's go into New Hampshire Life segment. In today's New Hampshire Life segment, restaurant provides hot meals to homeless in Manchester. Temporary housing locations set up in COVID-19 crisis. Let's take a listen to that video.
Strict attention to detail. That's what sets Kubota construction equipment apart. It's how we maximize performance, increase strength, and give you the dependability you demand. We engineer our equipment precisely at every level. It's what makes us a leader. Now get financing as low as 0% APR for up to 60 months. See your local Kubota construction equipment dealer today. Where best meets second to none, MD.
Stark Brewing Company, business is anything but ordinary these days.
It's our way of helping our community right now.
On a cold, dreary day, he, his wife, and restaurant crew are doing so one hot cup of coffee and warm meal at a time.
Extremely thankful for what we were doing. The hot coffee on a day like today was very much appreciated. The food was appreciated, so they were definitely thankful.
Governor Sununu and Mayor Craig partnered with families in transition and New Horizons to hire Stark Brewing Company to serve 2 meals a day at 4 temporary housing locations in Manchester that have grown exponentially since the pandemic began. It was an easy decision for Peter, who has been working with the homeless community for 26 years and sits on the board for New Horizons.
This is important, and these people are struggling, and as this stupid virus keeps going, it's going to get more and more difficult. So this is great that a lot of people stepped up.
To comply with the CDC's social distancing recommendations, folks who would normally be housed inside a shelter are not allowed to return if they spend the night on the street. So these meals fill stomachs, but also give peace of mind to social workers.
Being able to now provide that food on top of it, it's just continuing to enhance the relationship, because the ultimate goal is how do we get folks out of the camps, get them to safe places once COVID is over.
But it's also a help for Stark Brewing Company, which was forced to cut back on its staff once the stay-at-home order began.
This gives us the opportunity to bring some of our staff back too, so it really is a win-win for us and for the community.
The state says essential services to encampments in Manchester will be temporary and at no cost to the city. Reporting remotely, Mike Cherry, WMUR News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. And we have a medical tip lesson for you. Let's learn. Here's everything you need to know about coronavirus antibodies. Let's take a listen to that lesson from Dr. Jen Ashton.
Hi everybody, I wanted to take a few minutes and explain a little bit more about antibodies for COVID-19 because it's getting so much attention. It's going to be so important in the next few weeks, months, or longer, and it can be complicated. So antibody testing for COVID-19 is a way that we will be able to test for past infection. This is really not meant to diagnose active infection. So when you talk about a curve for antibodies or serology in the field of immunology, you'll see a curve that looks like this. Along the y-axis is what we call titers. You can think of that as the number or level or amount of antibodies in your blood that your body makes. Down here is time. So the first thing that goes along the timeline is when you've been exposed to an infection and when your symptoms start. So we're going to use red for COVID-19. In terms of time, what we know at this point is that the average onset of symptoms is 5 days after exposure. It can be as short as 1 day or as long as 14 days. So let's say this is 5 days after exposure, but 0 days in time, okay? So day 0. The first antibody that appears in our blood, and I'm going to use green, is an antibody known as IgM. So we start to see that antibody level go up, and we don't really know when it comes down, right? These are the new antibodies. You could think of IgM as the first antibodies on the scene. Typically, we can start to see those as early as 5 days after onset of symptoms. Okay. The next antibody that appears is the important one that everyone is talking about with COVID-19, and that's called IgG. So we're going to use orange for IgG. Okay. That's the antibody that in general we think tells us if someone has an old exposure or infection. We think that that can start to appear in the blood as early as 10 or 12 days. Okay. What we don't know though is how long that antibody level will last. The other thing we don't know, and when you talk about antibodies, this is really important. When you've heard people say we don't know whether or not we'll be immune to antibodies, antibodies look like a Y, right? And they recognize a protein, let's say on the surface of the coronavirus. Let's say those spike proteins on the surface. So if the antibody recognizes this spike protein, then we call that high affinity, and that has a greater chance of protecting us down the road for some period of time. We don't know when. We don't know whether it'll be 6 months, we don't know whether it'll be a year, or possibly even more than a year. However, your body still can make an antibody in response to coronavirus that doesn't block or neutralize the virus, so you can still be infected again. So let's say that antibody recognizes a part on that virus that's not the spike protein. That may be a low affinity antibody, meaning it's not really a good blocker or neutralizer of future infection or exposure to that virus. So when you look at these titer levels or the amount, it is possible to have high titers and low affinity. It's also possible to have low titers and high affinity. So when you hear experts like Dr. Birx and Dr. Fauci saying, we're not sure whether this antibody, IgG, will protect us long term, they're really talking about whether or not the antibody can block or neutralize the virus in the future. We also don't know what time period this antibody will stay detectable in our blood. So this is Antibodies 101. This is the field of immunology or serology when it comes to exposure to COVID-19. And there is a lot we don't know here. The last thing I want to leave you with is when you look at this timeline, you can see, because each of these things happens along a different time period, if you test someone here and they haven't started to make antibodies yet, you're going to get a negative result on your serology test. If you test someone here and they're only started to make IgM but not IgG, you're only going to get one positive antibody. Whereas if you test someone here, you'll get both IgM and IgG. So when you test someone is very, very important. So I hope this helped. Stay tuned for another COVID-19 session soon.
Okay, and there you go. That is your medical lesson for today. And we're going to switch gears now. Let's go into entertainment news. In entertainment news, Jada Pinkett Smith reveals how quarantine has affected her marriage with Will Smith. Let's take a listen to that video from Entertainment Tonight.
After 20 years, she knows your scent.
I know the touch, I know the scent, I know the energy, everything.
Well, that was then, and this is now.
One of the things that I realize is that I don't know Will at all.
Jada Pinkett Smith has been married to her hubby Will Smith for almost 25 years, but admits she doesn't know her husband at all.
Let me tell you, that's been something to be married to somebody for 20 some odd years and then realize I don't know you and you don't know me.
In the new episode of Red Table Talk titled How Your Relationship Can Survive Quarantine, the host opened up about how the coronavirus pandemic has tested her marriage.
I go straight to fight. I'm really kind of in a position where that is really not the option.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And having to really just take a breath, take a minute, sit on my hands before I say or do anything.
That's the thing that is difficult that people don't understand about love. You think it's all flowers and everything, but love gets created by making it together.
Yeah.
You know, it's like it is from survival.
Come through some stuff.
And that's exactly what Jade and Will are doing now. The couple has decided to take a step back and learn how to be friends again.
The thing that Will and I are learning to do is be friends. Right?
Yeah.
Because you get into all of these ideas of what intimate relationships are supposed to look like, what marriages are supposed to be. So Will and I are in the process of him taking the time to learn to love himself, me taking the time to learn to love myself, right? And us building a friendship along the way.
This isn't the first time the Smiths have been open about their marriage struggles.
Him coming to the table has been kind of a release for him to not have to live up to this certain thing.
In 2018, Will came to the table and admitted he and Jada previously went their separate ways.
We broke up within our marriage and got back together again.
Right. Yeah. I had to rebuild.
I had to rebuild with new rules and
something way different.
Something way completely different.
But the actress says that spending time apart from your partner is not always a bad thing.
You really have to go your separate ways to figure out your stuff.
Yep.
You got to be strong enough and understand clearly what it is you're in search for. You know what it is you want, what it is you don't want. Because that whole time when you're in a union, you're pointing fingers. So I had to go away, gain my strength as Jada again. Not mommy, not wife.
And even in their lowest point, Will and Jada says divorce will never be an option.
We essentially had to destroy our marriage.
Oh, yeah.
She was like, I can't do this anymore. And to me, it was over. But divorce was never even an option.
Tasha, I told Will from the gate, I said, let me tell you something. If you marry me, know this. We're going to be together. We're going to be under the same roof. You might be on one end of that joker with somebody else. And I might be on one of this joker with somebody else.
Yeah.
And I always said, that's ridiculous. But we're going to be Yeah, in this joker together.
As for Will, he's spoken candidly with ET throughout the years. He shared his definition of true love.
Through my relationship with Jade, I realized that romance actually is not love. Real love is born of surviving with someone, of struggling, of facing the most insecure and inadequate parts of yourself, and struggling and suffering, where you come to a place where you develop true love.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. And now let's take a look at those celebrity birthdays for today. Let's see which celebrities are celebrating a birthday today. And happy birthday to all of these celebrities. We hope they have a wonderful birthday and a great day. And thank you for watching this morning edition of Good Morning New Hampshire. Have a great rest of your Friday morning, and I'll see you back here later on today for Good Evening New Hampshire. Have a great day, everyone, and try to stay dry in this rainy Friday day.